Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're talking about my 5-star, my 6-star reads, basically my favorite books of all time. And let me tell you, putting this list together was debatably one of the most difficult things that I've done on this channel. I am definitely very picky with the books that I give 5 stars. I don't really give them out lightly. So when I do give a book 5 stars, it means I'm freaking obsessed with it. And so, yeah, picking books for this video was like, of my favorite reads, what are my 6-star reads? Like, out of all the books I've given 5 stars, what do I just love and never stop thinking about? And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today. I read from a lot of different genres, so today we're going to be talking about classics, fiction, romance, fantasy, sci-fi, kind of do it all. So if there's a particular genre that you guys are not interested in, feel free to skip around and go to the genres that you're interested in so you can get some good recommendations. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say for the intro. Let's just talk about my favorite books on the entire planet. I feel like I'm literally going to be giddy throughout this entire video. Okay, so I think I'm going to be starting out with fiction, literary fiction, and I actually wanted to start out with a recent 5-star, 6-star read. You can watch me read this in a recent reading vlog if you're interested. But the first 6-star read that we're going to be talking about in this week's video is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Never have I experienced a book in a world that felt so real. We follow 2 main characters in this book, Sam and Sadie, and I felt like I knew them. Like, ending this book felt like a friend breakup. This book basically follows, again, Sam and Sadie as they navigate through life from childhood into adulthood and ultimately grow to become video game designers. And while that premise might not sound like the most exciting thing to the general population, what I really appreciated about this book is we really get this like deep dive into flawed characters, and there's so much commentary on like the flawed nature of human beings. And then there's also this really beautiful commentary of video games. And so you have this title, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, that gets at, in a video game, when you die, you have another tomorrow. You can always restart and live. But as like humans and people, we only have one chance, and how, we're going to make this impact on the world. And there's so much more to it that I won't get into it because of course I don't want to spoil anything. If you're into like deeper fiction and like literary analysis, check this out because it rocks. All right, so I'm going to try to move through the rest of these a little bit quicker. So the next book that I've chosen is actually an author because I have given every single one of this author's books 5 stars, and she is the only author that I can say that for. So the next book and author that we're going to be talking about is, yeah, that makes sense, is Taylor Jenkins Reid. And the book that I have here is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I have read this book by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've also read Daisy Jones and the Six, as well as Malibu Rising. Those are the 3, I think, and I have given them all 5 stars. Now, hear me out. If you are more of a romance girly or more of a fantasy girly or guy, okay, or other, and you struggle to get into fiction, Taylor Jenkins Reid, the way that I always describe her is she has this art about her that allows her to write deep, addictive fiction. I feel like her writing lacks, all these, what I like, again, I like to say like shiny things that you have in like a romance novel or a fantasy and the magic. Like, these things are all feasible and could happen, but she writes them in such an addictive way. This book in particular takes place in Los Angeles. We get to see the life of this celebrity, Evelyn Hugo, and we have multiple timelines going on. I love anything by her. I need to keep reading everything that she publishes. Next up, we have one of my favorites. I love this book so much, and that is, well, it's in this video. Obviously, I love it so much. And that is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This one is another one kind of like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, where I feel like when you hear the plot, it doesn't sound like the most exciting thing ever. It really doesn't. We follow this woman named Tova, and she works the night shift at a local aquarium in this like seaside town in California, and she's the janitor. And so when she goes to work this night shift, she, I don't know how to describe it, like builds a relationship, like begins to care for the octopus in the local aquarium. And let me tell you, the octopus, Marcellus, I think all that I need to say is Marcellus has a POV in here, and he is debatably one of my favorite book characters I've ever read from. Like the way he can critique the human species is unlike anything I've ever experienced. I loved Marcellus's character, and there is this like mystery element that runs throughout the plot, and there is also a third POV that I'll let you discover for yourself. And it's just beautiful. And I cried at the end. I've cried. Pretty much every book on this list made me cry. Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. So good. All right, next up, I didn't actually know what category to put this book in. Some people say it's romance. Some people say it's literary fiction. I don't know. But I have to tell you that Normal People by Sally Rooney, you are either going to love it with your whole heart and soul, or you're going to hate it with your whole heart and soul. People love this book or they hate it. I have yet to see anything in between. My sister and I are my favorite example. I gave this 5 stars. I told her to read it and she gave it 1. Can't have it all, you know? Normal People follows the story of Marianne and Connell. Kind of impressing myself today with how I've been able to remember character names. Yeah, it follows the story of Marianne and Connell, and we start with them as 2 characters in high school, and Connell is this like very extroverted, like on the sports team type of guy, but he comes from less money, whereas Marianne is, you know, this more quiet, shy, introverted girl, but she comes from a lot of money, and we see them again interact in high school, and there's a unique way that their families are connected to each other. But then we move forward in time and we get to see them in college, and they go to the same university, and both of them kind of undergo this transformation where Marianne kind of comes out of her shell for one reason or another, and Connell kind of retreats into his shell for one reason or another. And I felt like the writing was so poetic. And again, the characters in here are not perfect. They are flawed, and you just want them to work their shit out. Like that's all you want the whole time. And it's kind of infuriating, but in the best way possible. Sorry, there's a bunch of birds flying around outside. I'm literally like that character in Up. That character, the dog, where he gets distracted by the squirrels. I'll probably cut that out. And yeah, again, the writing is just really poetic. And if you approach this with a very like literary perspective, I don't know how you wouldn't love it. But again, to each their own. I love that book. I also just wanted to give an honorable mention to another like historical fiction that I love. There wasn't a better place to put that, and that book is The Secret Life of Bees. I don't remember the author's name. This is such a beautiful historical fiction story. It's been a few years since I read it, so I don't want to risk like butchering the synopsis. It's written for a younger reader, like it's very easy to understand, but there's a lot of deeper themes in here like racism and family and life. Like there's just so much good to it that I wanted to throw it in here. So if you haven't read that book, and it's not really a like popular book talk book or a book that people talk about, it's just one that I've loved for years. I read it in college, and I think you should totally read it. So honorable mention for the fiction section. Next, we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about romance, because I like to do it all. I like to get a little bit of fiction, classics, romance. So yeah, we're going to start out with romance. And my favorite romance author, the entire internet should know this at this point, is Emily Henry, and I brought with me my 2 favorite books by Emily Henry, although every book that she has published is a masterpiece. Emily Henry is known for writing romance that has a lot of depth, and in my opinion, her stories are pretty feasible. With a lot of romance books that I read, there's kind of this suspension of disbelief, or you kind of have to be okay with characters breaking up for no reason and then getting back together at the end, or, you know, extreme miscommunication that feels unnecessary. necessary. Whereas I feel like Emily Henry can really weave together a story that's like founded on realistic challenges that people in the real world, for lack of a better expression, go through. So like her characters are dealing with something that I could struggle with, or you could struggle with, like in a realistic and feasible situation. And for that reason, readers really connect with her books. And her men, oh gosh, the men in these books, Augustus, Everett, and Wynne, I don't remember your last name, are kings. Like, I love these men so much. In Beach Read, we follow two authors who are in like a writing slump, and they switch genres to kind of get the juices flowing. And then in Happy Place, this is a second chance romance where we follow this couple when they're falling in love in college, and then 10 years later they are like adults living professional lives and they've broken off an engagement, but they have to fake date in this like very unique social setting with all of their friends from college. And it's beautiful, and the friendships in this book really stand out to me in addition to the romance. The next romance that I wanted to mention that I don't actually own, but I should acquire a copy of this book because clearly I love it. And that book is Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. This book, I feel like, again, this was pretty popular a little while ago now. Archer's Voice follows, this is really going to be testing me. Archer is the male main character. I think the girl's name starts with an M. No, it's Bree. Yes. It follows Archer and Bree. Oh, that feels so good. And both of these characters have very troubled, traumatic pasts. Like, they've both been through some pretty extreme hardships, and you see that right at the beginning because they're clearly both very like closed off, and the way that these two characters communicate with each other is really, really beautiful, and watching their relationship form. And I feel like you get to see these two characters fall in love, rooted in both like working through the trauma of their past, but also coming together in like the present. And like, it's not a then now timeline, but like you can see them connecting and like working through things that were very traumatic for them in their pasts, but also the beautiful things that are going on like in their lives at that moment, if that makes sense. And I just really loved this story. Again, it felt very believable, and I just really love it, and I would recommend it to anyone. I also picked this book up on a whim. Like, I didn't know anything about it and ended up really loving it, and it was like the best surprise ever. So yeah, Archer's Voice is fantastic. And then I think the final romance books that I have to talk about today are by Christina Lauren. I love this writing duo. I think they're fantastic. Now, I brought two books up because, you know me, I kind of did this by author. I love pretty much anything, almost anything by Christina Lauren. Now, the crowd favorite, the one that every single person seems to love, is Love in Other Words, and with good reason. This is I love how the annotations of this book turned out. This is a second chance romance following Macy and Elliot, and you get to see them as kids, like falling in love with each other and like connecting through words and literature, which like for all readers, it's very meta and like so fun. So fun to read a book about books and words and stuff. It's adorable. But of course, they lost touch for a reason that we don't get to know at the beginning of the book, and they reconnect in their adult professional lives. If you can't tell, I love a good second chance romance. I absolutely eat it up. And it's just really beautiful, and I did cry a lot. So yeah, that's Love in Other Words. But then the book that I like to mention that I feel like is less popular and less people are obsessed with is my favorite Half Night Stand. I loved this book. I feel like the main character in here, her name is Millie, is like the definition of a girl boss. Like, she is this, I think is she a forensics professor? She works at UC Santa Barbara, and I remember like what she studies is like a little dark. I don't remember exactly what she studies, but she is like one of the boys. She has this group of like guys that she's friends with. They all work in this like professional academic setting, and there's this like black tie gala that's coming up at UC Santa Barbara, and none of them have dates. So they all like get themselves on dating apps. And let's just say that there's a bit of a half night stand at the beginning of the book between Millie and one of her guy friends. And then they're all, you know, creating dating profiles, trying to find people for this event. And these fun little themes just like tie together in a really hilarious way. And I think one of my favorite parts about this book is there's text messages. Actually, there's two things. So there's like text messages between Millie and like our love interest and just like her and her friends. But then there's emails in here, and there's also, I'm trying to find it, like group chat. Oh, here we go. Like group chats between like all the friends, like Millie and the guy friends. And it's just so funny. Like I thought Christina Lauren did such a great job creating a beautiful romance and beautiful friendships. And like I eat up romance with like well-developed like side characters who facilitate the plot. And that's this book. So if you're like, oh, I read Love in Other Words, I really liked that book, but I can't find anything that's like similar, go check it out. I love that book. Totally underrated. Okay, next we have fantasy. And let me tell you, I love fantasy, so picking a favorite was very difficult. I just feel like there's so many series, or like there's a book within fantasy series that I just love. But I reined myself in and I picked my top tier fantasy books. The first one that I have to talk about was a viral TikTok, booktok book. A lot of people have read it, and if you haven't, that's fine. I would recommend it. And that book is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This is another one that I don't own. I really should get a copy of it. I borrow a lot of my books from friends, so that's why I don't have this one. The Song of Achilles is a Greek retelling of the love story between Achilles and Patroclus. And I love Greek mythology. I like to think that I know a good amount about it. And so reading this retelling was such a fun time because I got to really interact with that like Greek mythology, like nerdy part of myself. But at the same time, you don't need to know anything about Greek mythology to understand and connect with this book and these characters. Achilles and Patroclus I felt like the dynamics between these two characters was a really, really interesting thing to explore. Like, oh, I don't want to say too much, but I don't want to say too little. Madeline Miller is just a poet, and like the things and the feelings and the emotions that she's able to convey on paper, like from both of these characters, was just beautiful. And if you're not into Greek mythology, do it for the romance, okay? I love these characters. It's definitely sad. Like, this book is gonna take you through the ringer. Like, I don't want you to like think this is a happy book, because it's not. And just for a little context, I was a little surprised, all right, with the ending. And 2 a.m., okay? Picture me, a girly who goes to bed at 9 p.m. every night, okay? 2 a.m. I'm in bed, next to my sister. I don't remember where we were or why we were together, but we're sharing a bed, okay? Lily is sound asleep next to me at 2 a.m. and I am silently bawling harder than I have in years over this book, because, you know, I love it, and it's happy and it's sad and it's like bawling, but like as quietly as I could so I don't wake her up. That was a rough night, let me tell you. Okay, enough about that book. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. The next book and like a series that I want to talk about, not going to spend too much time on it because everybody loves it, and that is the ACOTAR series. Particularly, this is the second book, A Court of Mist and Fury. My favorite's actually the third one. I probably should have grabbed that one. But this is a fantasy series that follows our main girl, Feyre. And at the beginning of the story, she's hunting to feed her family. And during that hunting excursion, she does something that she wasn't supposed to do. And so, long story short, she gets taken to the Fae realm. There are Fae, fairies, magical creatures in this world. And, you know, she's kind of just like going about her days trying to figure out what the heck is going on, because weird things start happening in this Fae realm. And so this book has a really wonderful romance in it. And then the third book, A Court of Wings and Ruin. Yeah, A Court of Wings and Ruin has a really wonderful like war and politics, and I really like political fantasy. I think it's really good. No, my storage is gonna fill up. This is what happens when I talk about all my favorite books. Okay, we're back. I just deleted some clips, but I think that was a sign from the universe that I need to stop talking about those, so we're gonna move on to the next one. Oh yes, the final fantasy series that I have to talk to you guys about is the Darker Shade of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. These books are incredible. They're actually what got me back into adult fantasy. A Darker Shade of Magic takes place in this world where there are parallel universes essentially taking place in London, and each of these Londons has varying levels of magic in them. And our main character, Kel, he is a rare kind of magician where he can actually move between Londons, but nobody else really can. And so he's this messenger, and he gets caught up in some illegal things, and he meets a really fun, spunky character who is our other main character of this series named Delilah Bard. She is from the London where there's no magic, and they build this really, really wonderful like connection. And the world building in here, like what I love about this book in addition to the characters is the world building. Like I have never seen world building done so exquisitely. I just felt like I could see each of these Londons like and their magic in my mind. Oh my gosh, it's just so good. So if you guys are looking for like addictive fantasy, wonderful characters, and beautiful world building that just is like perfectly portrayed in your mind, I'm not going to tell you to not pick up this book, if you're catching what I'm saying. I personally like the second book in the series the best, but they're all great. All right, I only have 2 books left, and they are kind of like stragglers. Like I picked my favorite sci-fi book and my favorite classic just because I love them, but I didn't really know where to put them. So I'll do the classic real quick. I'm not going to talk about it for super long. I do love a lot of classics. I don't read them super often, but my favorite American classic that I have read to date is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This, I read it in high school for class, but it kind of became a comfort read. Like when I moved to college, and when you move to college, you feel kind of alone, whatever. When I left for college, I like went to the UCLA bookstore and I just like bought this book because I needed a comfort read, which is kind of like an odd thing to say about The Great Gatsby, but this book is great. If you guys like the idea of like money and parties and like wealth in New York, this book is just really fun. And I kind of just liked the wealthy New York vibes that it has. And there's a lot of symbolism in here, and I really, really loved that. So highly recommend if you're looking for like a simple, easy classic. And then I don't own my favorite sci-fi book, but that has got to be Ready Player One by who wrote that book? Ready Player One it's again one of those books where I just felt like the words were being projected into my brain. Like everything that was going on in this sci-fi book, I just felt like I could see every single thing happening like a movie in my mind. And in this story, basically the world has kind of gone to crap, and people live the majority of their lives in this virtual reality. So you put on this like headset and you go into this reality, and you can go to school, you can have a job, all these kinds of things. And the creator of this VR, like virtual reality world, essentially says that he's hidden Easter eggs in the world, and whoever finds them will inherit like the fortune and the rights to the like system. Apologies, it's been a while since I've read this book. I need to reread it. It's so good. And of course, our main character goes on this adventure looking for the Easter eggs within the video game. It walked this perfect line and had this perfect balance between like an enjoyable, addictive read that definitely provides this level of escapism that I really enjoy when I'm reading. But at the same time, it was able to make really, really deep commentary about like humanity and like our technology, and who are we without our technology, and what do we become when we're living most of our lives on a screen, and like, is this where our future is headed? I don't know. Yeah, I just felt like it was really thought-provoking, but also provided escapism and really great characters. And yeah, it was just really good. So if you're like, oh, I don't know if I like sci-fi, I mean, I read a lot of sci-fi, not a lot. I've read Dune, I've read The Three Body Problem. I like to think that I've read a good amount of sci-fi. This one's really, really great. So I would highly recommend. I'm now looking at a pile of my favorite books, and I've never felt so good. I don't ever want to put these away. I just want to like consume them on a loop and just like be happy. Yeah, guys, these books are so good. Like literally all of them. I love them so much. I hope you got some good recommendations from this video. I feel like some of these are definitely more popular than others, so do with that what you will. As always, leave your name in your comment down below. I love getting to know you guys beyond your username. I love this community so much. The comment section is truly my favorite part about creating book videos, and I think that's all from me. So I hope you guys are doing wonderfully. I hope you're having a great day and a great reading month, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay, bye.